My name is Emma, and I am an exuberant and joyful individual who once perceived that I had all the necessary elements for a fulfilling life. I previously believed my existence was flawless, impervious to disruptions in my happiness and stability, but that perception has since altered. A pivotal night challenged all my previously held beliefs. I was instantly captivated, and my world was transformed in the blink of an eye. Please ensure you subscribe. Subscribe to my channel to enable me to share more captivating true stories like this one. Please watch this video in its entirety and like it, as this narrative promises to be exceptionally intriguing. Please click the like button to show your support for my father, Michael, who has always been a prosperous and affluent figure in my life. He dedicated his entire life to attaining his accomplishments, and to me, he epitomized greatness. Despite the devastating absence of my mother during my childhood, he chose not to remarry. Instead, he invested all his affection, energy, and focus into raising me as his sole daughter. He ensured I never experienced loneliness, despite his constant work commitments. We resided in New York, the city that never sleeps, characterized by its vibrancy and rapid pace, attracting individuals from around the globe to pursue their aspirations. I frequently experienced a sense of living in a dream. However, amidst the excitement and fast-paced lifestyle, there was an air of enigma surrounding my father's existence. He was a man of considerable means, and his success enabled him to acquire multiple properties throughout the city. Yet, despite residing in one of those properties, I could never definitively ascertain where home truly was. Each time we relocated, he would indicate a new building or opulent villa, asserting ownership of several residences or indicating that a certain property belongs to him prompted increasing curiosity about the extent of his fortune, despite my awareness of his affluence. I never doubted his capacity to finance it. He had rightfully earned it via diligent effort. Father maintained an extensive social circle. Many important individuals, including prominent commercial and societal personalities such as legislators, CEOs, and founders of major organizations, were part of this circle. These individuals wielded significant power globally, and my father was among them, attending opulent gatherings and elite events. People consistently invited my father to events. They recognized, liked, and esteemed him widely. As his sole daughter, I frequently accompanied him on walks. Accompanying him around bustling rooms, I absorbed his narratives while receiving accolades from his acquaintances over my development and appearance. David distinguished himself among my father's acquaintances. The utmost David and my father have maintained a close relationship from their undergraduate years, having navigated challenging circumstances together while striving to establish their business from inception to eventual success. David was the sole individual my father genuinely trusted. He frequently remarked, "With David, I feel as though I have another brother." These remarks profoundly impacted me. They constituted the foundation of what appeared to be an unbreakable friendship. David exemplified gentlemanly conduct. He exuded confidence and was articulate, and perpetually displaying a pleasant, welcoming grin. He was esteemed among my father's colleagues, admired by many, and well regarded by all who knew him. He possessed an innate ability to make individuals feel at ease, as if they had known him for an eternity. He was the type of person one could trust immediately. I held him in high regard, especially since my father had consistently placed his trust in him. David was a quasi-uncle. I sought an individual with whom I could converse freely, someone to whom I could turn for counsel during familial gatherings and social events. He frequently took me aside to commend my intellect and beauty, expressing his pride in my accomplishments. Yet, I overlooked a peculiar gaze he occasionally directed towards me. It was transient, nearly undetectable, yet it remains in my memory. Upon reflection, I recognized the extent of my error in placing such trust in him that fatal night, which commenced like any other. The event was a significant occasion hosted at a luxury hotel where my father served as the keynote speaker. He had meticulously prepared for his address, and I accompanied him to offer my usual support. While my father engaged in conversation with fellow businessmen and colleagues, I took the opportunity to relish the ambiance of the event, characterized by music, laughter, and lively chatter, creating an atmosphere of enjoyment for all attendees. The occasion was exhilarating, and I was pleased to stand beside my father. Shortly thereafter, David arrived. He greeted me with a smile, inquired about my well-being and studies, complimented my attire, and remarked on my appearance. I reciprocated the smile, feeling flattered yet considering him merely a friendly family friend. At that moment, I thought nothing of it and never anticipated what would transpire next. After some time, I excused myself to locate the restroom. I courteously bid farewell to David and departed, but midway through the hotel, I realized I was unaware of the bathroom's location within such a vast structure. "They are attempting to resolve the matter, David," reappeared as though he possessed an acute awareness of my location and requirements. He grinned and stated, "Allow me to guide you. This hotel is vast, making it easy to become disoriented. I have complete trust in him." I had no reason to believe differently. He had consistently been courteous to me, and I assumed he was merely being helpful. I followed him as he guided me down long, brightly lit halls until he indicated a door and stated, "This is the ladies' room." I entered, pleased to have finally located it, but before I could shut the door, I heard rapid footsteps behind me. Before I could respond, David entered the restroom and obstructed the door with both hands. The sound of the latch clicking shut reverberated in my ears, immobilizing me. At that moment, I observed his eyes. They were no longer warm, friendly, or polite, but rather cold and calculating. His smile had transformed into something terrible. I sensed my body getting chilly, my heart beating with panic. "David, what are your current activities?" I inquired, my voice quivering with trepidation, yet attempting to maintain composure. He remained silent, advancing towards me, his gaze fixed on mine. I felt ensnared. As I attempted to retreat, my back collided with the wall. No one was around to hear my potential cries for help, and the door behind me was secure. The subsequent moments seemed interminable to the man I had once trusted. The individual my father had trusted had transformed into someone I could no longer identify. David, formerly a family friend, had transformed into a menacing threat, enclosing me and rendering me helpless. My thoughts raced, but my body remained immobilized by dread. As he approached, I attempted to retreat, but the confines of the small bathroom left me with no escape. I was ensnared. David's eyes were devoid of warmth and kindness. Rather, they were filled with frigid longing, accompanied by his smile. Distorted into something sinister. "Do not fear," he stated, his tone gentle yet commanding. "I wish to converse as we once did, David." "What are you doing right now?" I insisted, my voice trembling. "This is the bathroom. Leave." But he disregarded me. He merely smiled slightly and rested his hand on my shoulder. I attempted to withdraw, but his grip was too powerful. Panic intensified. I cried, "Let me go, you cannot. Execute this task." He stated that no one can hear you. Emotionally, it is merely you and me in this space. His words pierced my heart like a blade. I used maximum effort to resist him, although he proved too formidable. It felt as though the walls were constricting, leaving no avenue for escape. They had ensnared me, sequestered me, and left me without assistance. David advanced once more, his voice laced with malevolence. "You are aware that I care for you, correct? Your father need not be informed. No one needs knowledge of those remarks that pierced me, exacerbating my distress. They obliterated the final vestiges of trust I held in him. I could no longer endure it. I yelled. I hoped someone outside would hear me, but the cacophony of music and laughter from the party obscured my pleas. I felt utterly alone and powerless, as though I were entirely invisible to the surrounding world. David persisted. He advanced. Overpowered by his might, I battled in vain. My attempts to escape were worthless. He persisted in his assault, his deeds more horrible than I had ever envisioned. My entire body screamed in fear, but no one helped me. The night transformed into a haze of anguish and terror, an interminable nightmare. When David finally left, I felt a sense of liberation. I sat on the floor, trembling and too feeble to rise, but before I could escape, David reappeared. He grinned once more. His eyes brimmed with a menacing intensity, as if he had orchestrated the entire ordeal. He repeatedly thrust me back into the nightmare, each iteration more harrowing than the preceding one. I lost all sense of time, oblivious to the length of my entanglement. Ultimately, when I believed I could no longer withstand it, the door swung open, illuminating the room, and my father's voice resonated. "Emma, what is your location?" He entered hastily, and time appeared to still as he beheld me quivering, shattered, and feeble. His visage turned ashen, and his eyes brimmed with terror and anguish. My father carried me in his arms, his voice trembling with anguish as he called for assistance, his gaze fixed on David, who remained immobilized in the corner. My father's face was contorted with terror, and his apparent wrath propelled him toward David, fists up, as he exclaimed, "You dare to do this!" He cried, "Landing punch," to my daughter. Following the hit, David swayed but remained upright. My father did not alleviate the suffering, as betrayal intensified each blow I observed. My mind was numb and blank, unable to comprehend the situation, as my father delivered strike after blow, each infused with rage. Panic engulfed everyone in the room, yet no one had the courage to intervene. I remained immobilized as my father fought David. Each blow seemed lethal. Ultimately, security personnel arrived. As everything subsided, I lost consciousness, unable to endure any longer. Upon awakening, I was met with the sterile illumination of the hospital room. My body ached, and my mind was obscured by the recollections of the nightmare my father represented. Seated adjacent to me, his visage was inflamed. He grasped my hand to prevent himself from weeping. "Emma, I deeply regret that I was unable to safeguard you. I failed to react. I simply gazed at him, acutely aware of the gravity of the situation. I had never witnessed him so vulnerable, so shattered." The subsequent days were haze. My father exerted every effort to assist in my recovery. He engaged in a confrontation with the police, ensuring the preservation of evidence, and facilitated David's arrest and accountability for his actions against me. The inquiry was expeditious. The police collected the evidence, my statement, and the medical reports. All evidence implicated David as the perpetrator. He attempted to exonerate himself by attributing blame to me. However, the truth was irrefutable. Utilizing his contacts, my father secured the most proficient legal team to guarantee that David would confront justice. David was found guilty and condemned. Sentenced to 15 years in prison, witnessing him led away in handcuffs marked the first moment I experienced relief. The nightmare was finally concluded. My father embraced me, his tears cascading onto my shoulder, yet the journey was far from complete. Although David was incarcerated, my path to healing had merely commenced. I recognized that the road ahead would be arduous. It would require time to recover from both the physical and emotional wounds inflicted by that night. However, I also acknowledged a significant truth. Justice had been rendered, and I had endured it with my Father by my side. I have learned to endure suffering, to confront my concerns, and to refuse to allow my past to define me as I reflect on this. Expertise, I recognize that my narrative transcends the pursuit of justice. It emphasizes that silence is detrimental in the face of tragedy and injustice. If you are encountering a similar situation, please express your feelings. Do not endure in silence. There are those who care and are willing to assist. Remember that you possess greater strength than you realize, and regardless of how bleak the days may appear, there is always hope on the horizon. Thank you for your assistance. After listening to today's narrative, kindly like, share, and subscribe to our channel to ensure you do not overlook any of our next videos. Farewell, and may you consistently discover tranquility and resilience regardless of life's challenges.